So when you make wine, you need to start with a mash and a container. This right here is a dog food container. You can buy it at Petco or some other pet stores or online. You can also buy them from wine shops. It's the exact same manufacturer, but you save a lot of money if you just buy it at the pet store, clean it out yourself with a good cleaner, and then drill a hole in the top here and put in a little rubber grommet and a thing that keeps the airlock. I forgot what the hell they called it. An airlock. Anyway, well, inside, I don't know if you can really see that well, but inside is a mash of rhubarb, sugar, and water. And then you add some yeast you get at the wine store. You get kind of gradually at a decently warm temperature, but not too hot, not too cold kind of thing. You have to read up on that, but just room temperature in your basement usually is enough to do it. You don't want any sunlight or excessive heat or cold. Anyway, I usually throw it in there frozen because it helps it mash up, and I grow a lot of rhubarb fresh, so it's all free for me. I just have to buy the sugar. I freeze it overnight, then I put it in here, and it breaks down the tissues in it, so you don't have to chop it up or grind it up. And then you let it ferment for a few weeks in this sealed container. The gas escapes there, and nothing comes back in. No oxygen comes back in because you want a carbon dioxide rich environment. That's the gases getting let off from the fermentation process. That keeps mold from developing. Anyway, and after a while, a few weeks or so, you get this mash right here. This is basically just rhubarb juice. And you siphon it in with this siphon right here. You stick it in the container. I'll just say that's a container. You put a tube on the end, and you pump it once, and it siphons it all the way in through there, and that little bottom part there is what kind of filters out the large chunks from your mash to a degree. You still get sediment in there and whatnot, but that's fine. This is your rough mix, mash, whatever. So it sits in there for a few weeks to a few months, depending on how long you want to let it sit and ferment, until the gas basically stops bubbling out of the top in this airlock. That's when you know it's completely done. Or technically you're supposed to top it after like 2 weeks and do a measurement to know your alcohol volume and taste. I just like to let it sit for a long time because it doesn't really matter for what I like to do it, the way I like to do it. And once it's sufficiently fermented to taste and whatnot, I usually put about this much of it in another carboy. I siphon it back out, and it's clearer, as you can kind of see. Now I add a fruit juice for this top layer. Strawberry, grape, whatever. Just give it a little more flavor because rhubarb wine is pretty stout. I also add a little chalk in there with the mash earlier to take some of the acid out because it's very acidic. Very, very acidic. It can give you some heartburn if you don't put chalk in there to absorb the acid. And anyway, after a few weeks or so, you get, or more, you get a clearer mash that ferments a little bit more too. And then when you want to make sure the fermentation is completely stopped, you add this thing called Camden tablets. And what Camden tablets do is they kill off all the yeast in there and stop the fermentation process in its tracks. So you're ready to bottle it. Well, close to being ready to bottle it. I usually put it in there, and then I let it sit for a few more weeks to a few more months. This is an older batch. It's been a couple of years or so now. I've been kind of lacking. I didn't make any last year. It was a bad year for rhubarb for me and time, so didn't really get to a lot of it. This here appears to be strawberry. I believe this is a strawberry grape mixture, and that is more of a heavy grape mixture. So these are bottles ready to go. I washed them all up. I recycle bottles from the liquor store. They give them to me for free, so I don't have to buy bottles every time. They always have the label stuck on them, and they're kind of nasty. But if you use a proper brush and a bottle brush cleaner and cleaning powder that you put in these, add to hot water, it does a good job of sterilizing and killing any yeast in there. And the bottle brush I end up putting on a drill, a cordless drill. I just cut the handle off and put the pointy end in there, and it just spins it like mad in there. Makes quick work of any bottle, cleans them all out. If you want to clean any bottles, that is a really good way. Just a cordless drill and a cut end off bottle brush. Anyway, I clean them and disinfect them, and you can see they're pretty darn clean. They just got a little water condensation in them from the cleaning process. I usually like to let them air dry, but I did them yesterday, and the house isn't warm enough in the winter to really dry them out well. But it won't affect the taste of the wine or any. That's just water. A little water vapor in there is not going to kill anything. But when you want to bottle it, I, again, use the siphon in the bottle. I stick it down in there with some hose, tubing, what have you. I think it's this size, actually the smaller one. And I connect it to the end of this brush right here. Well, not brush, the end of this siphon bottler thing. I forgot the terminology for it. Basically, the hose goes in on this end, and you put it in the bottle, and this end right here presses down on the bottom of the bottle, as you can see, and then the fluid comes out, which is the wine. And when you get too close to the top, you let off the pressure and pull it out, and you usually have it to the right level, right in the bottle there. And once that's all complete, I usually do a whole row of them at a time until the carboy's empty. Then I have a corker right here. And I take a cork, per se, I place it in here. You put that on the end of the bottle, and you pull the handles down, and it puts a cork in it. Makes quick work of it. Does a great job. And you can buy, again, the corks and this at the stores that have the winemaking supplies. Not all liquor stores carry them, just a few specialty shops. In Omaha, I go to one on 84th and Cornhusker. I think it's called Cornhusker Liquor. They have a lot of supplies there, and the guy that runs the place knows all about making beer and wine and everything else. And this is a clear carboy container. I try to keep them clean in between and then give them a little rinse before I use them again. That's what you start out with in the process. And you can bottle them in anything. I've reused these giant bottles of wine or these funky looking bottles of liquor. So long as you don't have too much pressure, you can use any thin-necked bottle you want and have the right size cork. Even these you can use for brewing like small batches of wine if you want to make your homemade wine. These old ketchup jugs, 1 gallon jugs. You can easily make a gallon of wine out of there that's fairly drinkable. I've tried it before with some smaller batches, like trying to make melon wine. I haven't had too much success, but it's not because of the size, it's just because I don't want to fill up a giant one of these trying to make something. I'd rather try a test sample, and if it works out well, then I put it in one of the big boys. Anyway, so that's pretty much the process of how you make wine. And then when you get done, I have, like, say, each one of these actually, good Judge of I makes anywhere from 2 to 2.5 gallons of, or 2 to 2.5 cases of wine. So you need to budget time-wise around 30 bottles of wine per each carboy of these. They're usually anywhere from 4 to 6 gallons. And that gives you 2 to closer to 3 on the larger ones, cases of wine at each one. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that presentation. It's very not well put together. But anyway, that's how I make my hillbilly wine. I got about 20 cases now. I don't drink a lot of it, but I do give it away, and it's fun to make. It's a good story. Tell your people. Anyway, good luck if you try this on your own. Hope this was helpful. Again, I'm Jason Hoffman. Bye-bye.